Have you ever wondered what existed before everything we know? And where was God? This is the kind of question that few people dare to ask, perhaps out of fear of not finding an answer, or perhaps out of concern that the answer might be too complex to understand. The fact is, this question touches on one of the greatest mysteries that has crossed the human mind. Who was God before creating everything that exists? It may seem absurd, but think with me. If we believe that everything began at some point and that God already existed, then he transcends time and space, like a reality that challenges the logic we understand. It's as if God is the author of an infinite book, where each written word, meaning each part of the universe, reveals a bit of his essence, yet still does not fully define him. Now you might wonder, but how can I understand this in practice? How does this idea of eternity and creation affect my life? The answer might surprise you. After all, understanding the eternity of God is not just a theoretical exercise. It directly impacts how we see the world and our own lives. This knowledge, when truly grasped, opens our eyes to the importance of seeking something beyond the visible and invites us to dive into what we call the Word of God. And here's the promise of this video. Together, we will uncover the mysteries of who God was before creation and what this understanding can do for you today. Because believe me, this truth is closer than it seems and can transform the way you live. Shall we begin? Since the beginning of time, the concept of eternity intrigues and fascinates the human mind, but when it comes to God, this idea takes on an even greater dimension. Imagine God inhabiting a time before time itself, a being that existed before space was filled with planets and stars, before anything existed to measure or count. He is in every detail of creation, even though he has no beginning or end. When we think about this, we see how small human understanding becomes in the face of God's greatness, like a drop trying to encompass the ocean. For many, it is hard to conceive of something that had no beginning, but here the concept of God unfolds into a unique beauty. It is not a mathematical puzzle or a scientific theory. It is the essence of the very Word of God. Imagine looking at the stars and realizing that they are merely a reflection of the eternal power of the one who placed them there, never having been created, always present. And to think that the same God who was before everything still hears, sees, and responds to the heart of those who seek him. Now, if we reflect on our own lives, there is something profound in this understanding. We are so accustomed to beginnings and endings that eternity sounds almost like a fantasy. And if this eternal God cares for us and is always with us, regardless of time, in our routine, between one commitment and another, knowing we have this presence is like a beacon in the fog, offering meaning and guidance. God is not just the creator, but a constant companion to each one of us. Naturally, when faced with the idea of an eternal God, questions arise. How do we understand the origin of one who has no origin? This question leads us to a second enigma, inviting us to delve a bit deeper into the understanding of this mystery as vast as the universe itself. Contemplating the origin of God is akin to confronting a profound riddle, a question that resists any simple answer. If everything we know had a beginning, how then do we comprehend the one who had no start? This mystery prompts many to wonder, could it be that the very Word of God lies beyond any human definition, as something that transcends logic and time? Imagine trying to discover where fire comes from by only looking at the flame, unaware that something greater sustains its existence. Such is the inquiry into the origin of God, a mystery present in every part of our universe and simultaneously transcending it. As we attempt to navigate this question, philosophers and theologians ponder the idea that for something or someone to exist eternally, it must be the source of everything. This means God is the one who exists beyond what we can see or measure, without limitations or borders. And even though this idea may feel distant, recognizing God as this inexhaustible source helps us see how present he is in our everyday lives. Every breath, every opportunity to begin anew, points to this presence without origin. He is the mystery behind the very enigma of life. There's an invitation here to set aside our intellect for a moment and make room for faith. This does not mean we should ignore reason, but rather accept that when we speak of God, we are dealing with something greater. In our minds, incessant questions arise. If God is eternal, how can he interact with a world that has a beginning and an end? And if he is infinite, how can he be present in every detail? For many, the inability to explain God is, in itself, proof of his greatness. Embracing the enigma is a way of embracing faith. This mystery leads to another reflection. If God exists beyond time, what relationship does he have with what we understand as science? The creation of the universe, often associated with the Big Bang, might be a clue to this connection between what seems inexplicable and what science seeks to comprehend. When we think about the creation of the universe, many envision the Big Bang as the beginning of everything, a point of explosion from which the cosmos took shape. But where does God fit into this equation? For many, it is precisely in that initial spark that the Word of God and science intersect, each adding its unique touch to the mystery of creation. What if, instead of being opposites, science and faith were two ways of contemplating the same truth? God, eternal and unchanging, may have manifested in the very structure of the universe, like an invisible architect who used time and space instead of bricks to form reality. Some scientists, while exploring the beginnings of the cosmos, find themselves faced with questions that science alone cannot answer. How did matter come into existence? What was there before time? These almost poetic questions reveal that while science is powerful, it cannot unravel every mystery. In this sense, believing in an eternal God, who is not bound by time or matter, offers a type of comfort that science cannot provide. It's like a puzzle where the missing piece is precisely what we call faith. Each scientific breakthrough serves as a reminder that, no matter how much we discover, humanity is still just beginning to understand creation. For those seeking to reconcile these views, it's worth seeing science as a tool that explores the how of the universe, while faith answers the why. Imagine this. The scientist observing the Big Bang may witness the beginning, but does not perceive the purpose. Faith, in speaking of God, reveals the intention behind the act of creation. For those who connect with the Word of God, every star and planet carries a greater purpose, echoing the reason everything was made. Thus, science is like a flashlight, and faith is the path it illuminates. This opens up a new question. If science helps us understand what is around us, what do ancient traditions have to say about this eternal God? We know that great thinkers have pondered this for centuries. Let's explore what these ancient minds have left us regarding the essence of eternity. Long before telescopes and scientific formulas, ancient philosophers, sages, and prophets reflected on what lay beyond the visible. These thinkers encountered the mystery of God and sought to comprehend his eternal nature. What they learned and documented was not merely knowledge, but a living wisdom that points to eternity. These sages perceived in the Word of God something that transcends human limitations, a presence that was, is, and always will be. For them, what we call eternal God was not just an idea, but a tangible reality revealed in the details of everyday life. Many of these ancient traditions grounded their teachings in practical examples to illustrate concepts that seemed abstract. The Greeks, for instance, through their philosophy, viewed the universe as an established order, with God as the mind that maintained harmony. Meanwhile, Eastern sages sought the divine in the essence of every being, in that which does not change with the passage of time. In this way, traditions, when speaking of the eternity of God, show us how each culture found unique ways to connect with the Creator. And these reflections continue to resonate today. Can we learn from this? Sure, here's the translated text. It's like drinking from an ancient fountain that still flows with wisdom for those willing to understand. This quest for answers can also be found in Jewish and Christian traditions, where the eternity of God is central. In the Psalms, for example, we find verses that proclaim the grandeur and immutability of God, describing him as one who does not grow weary or tired. These texts, which are part of the Word of God, are more than literature. They carry the weight of a genuine search for understanding the Creator. Reading these texts is like coming into contact with the voice of those who, for centuries, have also sought answers and found rest for their doubts in God. Thus, the wisdom of the ancients leads us to another essential point. How could an eternal God, described as spirit, influence the physical, tangible matter of our world? This relationship between the spiritual and the material continues to be a fascinating mystery and is one of the themes that ignite curiosity and faith. The idea of an eternal, immaterial God influencing the physical matter of the world has always intrigued people. How can something that is not made of atoms interact with what is solid and touchable? Many believe that this influence is possible precisely because God is not limited by physical laws, and His Word echoes throughout all of creation. It's like the wind, which, though invisible, can move trees and stir the seas. Its presence is felt even if it cannot be seen or directly touched. In the same way, God acts within creation, even while His essence remains unseen. Modern theories in cosmology and quantum physics have begun to explore these themes in unexpected ways, questioning the boundary between the visible and the invisible, subatomic particles that appear and disappear, as if obeying laws that defy common logic, intrigue scientists, and suggest that reality is much more complex than it seems. It is here that many find a connection to the idea of God. If even matter is not entirely predictable, it is not so far-fetched to think of a spiritual force beyond matter acting upon it. Thus, for those seeking truth, it is possible to view this divine interaction as the great mystery that underpins all existence. To better understand, we can observe everyday examples where matter seems to respond to something greater. Imagine a sincere prayer, a word of faith spoken with intention. How many stories have we heard of people who felt a change, a force beyond themselves? This connection with the Word of God is an expression of how the spiritual touches the material, showing that sometimes faith can transform even that which we consider solid and unchangeable. These moments make us ponder, if the Word of God can influence reality, then perhaps the physical world is merely a reflection of a greater reality, something that only spirituality can access. And so, as we explore this idea, we find ourselves facing an even greater mystery. How does the relationship between the spiritual and the physical unfold in the very origin of the universe and in our quest for the meaning of life? It's a journey that only those willing to look beyond can truly understand, and perhaps that's what keeps us questioning and seeking. After reflecting on all of this, the question remains, what will you do with this knowledge? Understanding the eternity of God, His mysteries, and the relationship between the spiritual and the material allows us to see life differently. Knowing that the Word of God is eternal and acts in every detail of our world, how will you incorporate this truth into your daily life? Perhaps it's time to rethink your priorities, your beliefs, and even how you handle the challenges that arise. After all, how many times have you pondered the meaning of life and who is truly in control of everything? Why not start applying this knowledge by seeking a life more connected with the Word of God and allowing yourself to live with purpose? Remember, great changes begin with small actions. It could be in how you view difficulties or even in offering a more sincere prayer, knowing that there is an eternal Creator who listens and acts beyond what you can see. Now, if these reflections have impacted you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any content. And here's a special tip. 2 videos will appear on the final screen. Keep watching to dive even deeper into the teachings of the Word of God. These videos might be the next step you need to transform your life.